guys, Glenn here from jazzpianolessons.online, and today we're talking technique. We're talking about how can you play faster, more accurate, more consistent. All right, so we're going to be talking about a couple little tips, some ideas, and some things you can practice on as well. All right, so let's get into it. All right, so one of the things to think about when we're talking about technique for jazz piano, it's not much different to classical piano. The only difference, the main difference really, is that with classical piano, you know what's coming up, right? So with jazz, you know, I guess you kind of know maybe what the next bar is. Maybe you know your phrase, but outside of that, you're improvising and you probably don't know what's going on unless you're playing the head of the song or something like that, all right? So there's really not much difference. So you can think about some of the classical things that would be helpful, and that's great too. I want to talk about a couple of different things. Firstly, economy of movement. All right, so economy of movement is really talking about what is the most efficient way you can do something. Now, when you see a great piano player playing, and they're playing something potentially really difficult technically, right? What you're noticing is that they're just playing the right way, all right? So they make it look like it's really easy to play, even though what they're playing is extremely difficult, right? That's all because of slow practice and working on economy of movement. Okay, so what is the most logical way for me to play this particular, phrase? What is the most, what's the best fingering that I need to think about? So you've got to think about that kind of stuff when you're thinking about technique. And playing some exercises will help you with that, and just get your fingers to kind of know where they need to go. That's to do with fingering, choosing what fingers to play, and also to in terms of preparation. All right, so I don't want to go too much into that today. I want to talk about some other ideas, and that's some constants and using your entire body. All right, now what do I mean by constant? What is like the constant between you and the piano and everything around? One of the most important things that we can use as piano players is gravity. All right, gravity. It's exactly the same every time, and it's helpful. It's going this direction. All right. So if I'm holding my hands up like this, I'm actually doing something to keep them in the air, right? So I mean, you kind of get that point, right? So it looks like I'm doing nothing, but I'm actually holding my arms up. Okay. So if I let them go, okay, then they're going to make sound, right? Now, if I let them go from a certain height every single time, I've got the same amount of distance, between, and I'm using gravity. Hopefully that's making sense, right? So first thing to think about is use gravity. Now, this is really, really helpful when you're wanting to play fast, and it's also really, really helpful when you want to play soft, because playing soft can be really difficult as well, right? So when you press it, I pressed it too soft and nothing came out, right? When you're trying to play really, particularly pianissimo, right? But if you can use gravity, you can kind of use that constant force to play something really gentle, all right? So that's one thing. Now, when you're playing, so what I mean by that is I'm using kind of the same distance that I'm coming down to the piano each time, and I'm using gravity to do that. Not just the force of my finger, all right? It's not just me doing my finger, but it's like I'm going here and then just letting my finger go, all right? So I'm using the same level of force every time. Now, that's the same as if I'm playing something fast. I'm actually preparing my fingers earlier, and that's something that you can do, right? So let's say this is the B major scale, and what I'm doing here, you'll notice, I'll just do it in slow-mo. I'm actually preparing my fingers and giving them some distance. So I've actually got two things going on here, and why that makes the technique of playing the piano easier. One is I've got gravity helping me, but the second thing is I've got momentum helping me as well, right? If I'm playing from here, I have to do extra pushing to make that same sound, okay? So if I'm playing from here, I get to make more sound more easily because of the momentum. It's like, if I want to, punch you or something like that, all right? I don't want to do that because you guys are my subscribers. I love you guys, all right? So if you haven't subscribed, then, please do. I'm not going to punch you, I promise, all right? But if I'm going to punch you, right, I'm not going to punch you from here, right? And I know that there's kind of that 1-inch punch from Bruce Lee, but, apart from, crazy people like him, right, if I'm going to punch you, I'm going to come back from here. I'm going to use momentum to do something. If I'm going to clap, I'm not going to clap. I can't clap very loud like this, but if I come back from here, even if I'm not working very hard, I get more of a decent sound. Does that make sense? So if I'm here and I let go of I can get forte, quite easily by using some gravity, okay, and momentum. But if I'm holding, I have to use way more effort, and I'm starting now to use more of my body, which I should be doing, but that's not something that I should be thinking about first. Firstly, gravity and momentum. Second, I'm going to use my entire body. Now, here's a way you can practice that, because often we kind of, you might have learnt to play piano with your fingers touching the keys the whole time, all right? But you want to lift up those fingers before you play them, okay? Now, here's a great exercise. Put down the lid of the piano or, a desk at work or whatever. Oh, I've got too many things there, so I'm just going to put it up here. All right, I think you can still see it. You can, yeah. All right, so I'm going to press down. I'm actually literally pressing down. This will build strength in your fingers too. And I'm trying to get them to come down. Can you see that? There's a bit of a curve. I might go on my left hand here. You can see there's a nice curve that goes down here of my hand, and I'm going to be pressing straight down. Now, there's a reason for that as well. Pressing straight down means that I've got more of, as you go straight down, there's more of this part of my finger that provides strength to the notes that I'm playing, right? And all about playing strength helps you to play faster and more accurately, right? So, and with greater ease, okay? So I'm going straight down. If I go like this, I'm not going to have the same level of strength, okay? So sometimes, of course, we play with straight fingers to get further up the piano or something like that. But most of the time we're going straight down, okay, like that. Now, when you're holding this, what I want you to do is kind of get those fingers to kind of go straight down. This is a great exercise for strengthening your fingers and getting ready for preparation of attacking the note. And so you're pressing down as hard as you can, and then you're going to lift up one finger at a time. You can probably hear that I'm making a decent sound with that, right? So this is building strength and getting yourself used to. Now I'm using all the other fingers are touching and pressing down at the same time, okay? One exercise that will help you outside of playing the piano. Now then when you practice your scale, your exercise, your 2-5-1 lick that you're going to be playing, all right, pick up the fingers before you play it. So you'll see my hand actually rests a little bit above the piano most of the time, and you can see that I'm also preparing those fingers. Now, as you practice that slowly, just maybe a scale, lift those fingers up high, and they'll start getting used to that if you practice it slowly. And then as you speed up, the piano will feel lighter. It feels lighter. Because I'm using gravity, I'm using momentum, and so it no longer feels difficult to play. Hopefully that makes sense for you. All right. Now also on top of that, I'm coming straight down because here there's no power. I mean, you can even test this. Put your arm out, your hand out or whatever, put your other hands and press down as hard as you can with straight fingers, and then press down as hard as you can with fingers going straight down. It's like, like if I was to go like that, that would be even more, but that's not efficient to play like that. You can't really, you've got to be playing like that, okay? Make sense? So it's something you can really practice. Now, Keeping wrists fairly flat and firm and controlled is a great way to pick up speed as well. Instead of my wrist doesn't move too much, right? Because I want most of the work to be done with my fingers and strength coming from my back and, all right? So you see that it doesn't move too much. I'm not going like this, right? It's not going up and down like crazy, right? So unless I'm playing chords, then that might happen a little bit, right? So you could do that. You want to try and keep a bit of strength going on here. Now, this was kind of mean, my organ teacher, organ is my first instrument, my organ teacher, I had to put a box of matches, right, an empty box of matches on my hands and play my scales and not have them fall off. Like 2 hands, 4 octaves, and not have them fall off. And that was painful, I tell you what, it was so painful. But I then, and I think there's some merit to that, except don't do it. Don't do it, because my piano teacher in college, I took some classical piano lessons in college, even though I'm a jazz player, because I wanted to expand my technique, and I did that. And one of the great things about that is it forced me to play things that I wouldn't normally play. And I don't mean just styles, but I mean, and I'm really grateful for that, but it made me do intervals and phrases that I wouldn't normally do, because when you're making it up yourself, improvising, you can tend to go back to the same thing a lot, all right? So as you try and develop your technique, one of the little tips is, you could play some other music, all right? And it doesn't have to be classical music, but that means that you have to play those notes. You can't get away with something that's difficult in classical music. If you want to play something classically and, there's something there in that piece of music that's too hard to play, you can't skip it. Like in jazz, if there's a phrase that you are finding difficult to play, you can kind of skip it and get around it some way. And I guess that's one of the wonderful things about jazz, but at the same time, it can be a fault, and it can stop you from learning something new. So you might want to go to some transcriptions, some new transcriptions, some transcriptions of perhaps some players that you haven't done before, and that will give you maybe some new things for your fingers to kind of have a go at, right? If that makes sense, right? Now, getting back to what I was just saying with having your wrist really flat, there is some merit to it, except my piano teacher, who I was talking about before, taught me quite the opposite. Now, she was taught by there's a lineage of Chopin, right? So she was taught by, I think she was the 6th generation of Chopin teachers, all right? So her teacher was taught by someone who was taught by who was taught by someone who was taught by someone who was taught by the infamous, the incredible Chopin. Now, Chopin not only created beautiful music for us to play, and some of the most difficult classical music, that we can, piano players have been tortured with and also delighted with for a couple of 100 years. But also, he was a fantastic piano player himself, all right? He had a great technique, and he taught in a certain particular way, and that was then taught to his students and his students and his students. So I'm kind of like a 7th generation Chopin student, if that makes sense. So you guys are like 8th generation, all right, now that you know this, okay. And so there'd be a lot more fluence movement going on with Chopin. So there's not much of the wrist being stuck in this kind of a position. It's more like a flowing kind of way, right? See how my fingers are kind of, see my arms kind of flow as I'm doing some fourths here, right? Kind of flowing across a bit more and then leaning back the other way, right? A bit more kind of like this. It sort of works for me when I'm playing more classical kind of oriented music. That kind of stuff, it kind of works for me a little bit better. When I'm playing the jazz stuff, I do feel like it works better for me to have more of a solid kind of wrist there. I'm not really sure exactly why it's happening. You guys can maybe give me in the comments below what works for you and what you think works, you know, for everyone as well, not just for you as well. I'd be really interested to see what you guys are doing and practicing and stuff like that. All right, a couple of exercises you could practice. You could practice Hanen studies. I did this in my early 20s for a little while. It was 60 exercises. They're kind of like this. Now, they're not very musical. They're not very jazz orientated. They will strengthen your fingers, that's for sure. You can play classical music and strengthen your fingers in that way. I would recommend doing probably a little bit of everything. I did a lot of Bach, roundabout in my early 20s. That kind of stuff to try and build some of my technique and also independence. You know, you can see that Bach likes to have, you know, two melodies going on at the same time, which kind of, you know, it's a little bit like Brad Meldau kind of jazz version of it, right? Anyway, he gets those counter melodies going all the time, which I just think are so cool. Very clever too. All right, so that could be something you could do. I would definitely practice 2-5-1 licks. I would definitely practice. There's a warm-up exercise. I'll put a link to that in the notes that I did a couple of months back for you guys. Check that out. That's a really good one because it kind of goes through not only technique stuff, but it will help you with knowing what notes to play and having some smooth, fluid kind of movement going on. All right. Now, don't forget, use your whole body when you're playing the piano. Use your whole body. You know, you've got massive, you know, your back is a lot stronger than your fingers. So if possible, you want to get some of the movement from your back, okay? Not too much. Like, it's not like you're, you know, squeezing your back muscles the whole time. Obviously, there's a lot going on with your fingers, okay? But when you're coming down hard on a particular chord, all right, I'm not really using my fingers that much there. You know, I've got my fingers there, I'm using the gravity, I'm using momentum, but I'm also pushing from here, okay? So that's a way to do it. And just, I guess, making sure you're sitting in the right spot, the right height, all that kind of stuff is actually going to help you with your technique, all right? So hopefully there's some things there that help you. And I'd love to hear your thoughts, your comments below. And if this is the first time we've met, maybe give it a like. If it's a second or third time we've met, maybe subscribe for more content on how to play jazz piano like a pro. All right, all the best, guys. I'll see you soon. Bye.